All right, so let's wrap up part one of Unit 2 and just look briefly at the long term legacy of the World's Fair. The biggest and long lasting impact from the World's Fair was the concept of American exceptionalism, the idea that somehow or another there was just something completely different, unique, and special about America and Americans. Um, the the fact that this fair was pulled off in essentially less than 2 years and that it was done with no government support, no government funding, all private entrepreneurial, like free market approach really set the standard for what was expected of America. And the idea that when they put their minds to it, Americans could do anything. It also really shows out that America is the most tolerant place in the world. There's a reason why millions of illegal immigrants attempt to find their way into this country every year, and not places like, North Korea or Venezuela or Cuba or Russia or even China. It's because somehow America is different and we are willing to work with and accept people, even if we don't agree with them, even if we don't necessarily support what they do. We basically put up with them. That's what tolerate means. It's a land and a place of exceptional opportunity. Now, going along with this, however, is the very real expectation now that America is a big boy and we have to do what big boys do. And other countries look at us and go, it's now time you put on the big boy pants today. It's now time to go out and be a responsible big boy. What does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about what that means for America in part two. It's also the innovations that are present. Every major city in the world looked at what Chicago created in terms of like fire prevention, resource management, recycling, basic layout, the interaction and harmony between nature and humanity. And so, as a result, um, they basically designed everything based on the white city and the innovations and developments that came out of that. Now, the downside. It really does highlight America as a culture of escapism and consumerism. We want instant gratification and we want to be able to somehow or another run away from our problems. Whether, that's now doom scrolling or social media or gaming or eating and drinking, you name it, we want to get away from our problems and pretend that they don't exist. That's what escapism is. We're also a culture driven by what would now be termed a dopamine addiction. We want amusement constantly. We want to be entertained. This is why what people remember from the fair was the midway and the great carnival atmosphere, the Ferris wheel, the rides, all the attractions, the food, and really the whole art, architecture, urban planning aspect of it was pushed aside. Even the World's Fair Committee officially listed the World's Fair's theme as entertainment, leisure, and amusement. We're also a society that wants stuff fast and we want it conveniently on our schedule. This is an outgrowth of what the fair did too. And ultimately, when we look at the Chicago World's Fair, we have to look at the contrasts. The fact that you have this utopia, this vision of the future of peace and tolerance and harmony with nature, and 3 miles away is most likely the most disgusting, crime ridden city in America, where dead bodies turned up in the streets regularly, where there was filth, where there was poverty in a country that was experiencing a massive economic crisis. And in one small corner of that city was maybe the most terrifying man that America had ever birthed in the form of a serial killer whose actions were so beyond anything that anybody had ever anticipated that it forced a change in policing and criminal investigation. No longer was it going to be okay to simply just kick in the door and beat people till you got a confession. It's the introduction of things like fingerprinting, evidence gathering, deductive reasoning in crime solving. Police work and criminal investigation as a whole changed dramatically because of what the police had to deal with as an outcome of the Chicago World's Fair. So, all of these things together form a gigantic change in America that still exists to this day. This idea that America is different, it's better, it's special. The changes and innovations and the belief that Americans were capable of so much without the need for government interference. A culture driven by consuming, spending money, and being entertained, and the desire to get away from everyday problems. And the unfortunate fact that all of these things were simply, they came at a price, and that price was the need for security and safety, and required a change in how we approached policing. Okay, we'll pick up Unit 2 next week. Make sure you check out all the stuff you have to do for the culminating assessment activity for this, the souvenir booklet. Peace and love.